Hello, everyone who's joining us right on time. We just hit 2 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to give people about 60 seconds to filter in and join us, and then we'll kick off our webinar. So just hang tight with us and we'll begin shortly. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you so much for joining our webinar. We're going to be covering storytelling through content, building a compelling narrative. My name is Sarah Tinsley. I'm a product marketing manager at Lytho. I've been with the company for almost 2 years on staff, but I was a customer with Lytho before coming on board. So I've really been with the company for about 4 years. And joining us today is John Reed.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining from. My name is John Reed. I'm the president of Glacier Communications, and we're a youth marketing agency working exclusively with higher ed institutions in Canada and the US over the last 12 years. And our Gen's really the 15 to 25 year age group. So what we call Gen Z. We study their online habits, their social circles, their hobbies. We employ them. In fact, the person who built this presentation is Gen Z, and that's why she put my picture in sepia tone, because she says I'm old. So they're a very funny generation, aren't they? But I'm excited to get into it. And Sarah, did you have anything else before we run into the content?
Yeah, great. Like I said, I'm Sarah with Lytho. Lytho is a creative operations platform. We're a software that really assists creative and marketing teams in helping them deliver their best work by empowering them to have the best operations, that behind the scenes work to move as quickly and seamlessly as possible so that the creative and marketing teams can put out their best efforts. So we're really excited today to have this combined effort and tackling this budding consumer audience in Gen Z.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, let's dive right in.
Awesome.
And a good place to start is on where all of this data comes from and where we kind of get all of our information. So really on the Glacier side of this presentation, we'll be able to talk to you about where this content can go. Lytho side, it'll be all about managing that content creation and all the works and processes and operations that go into that huge, big task. But at least in order to do Gen Z or to know Gen Z, we certainly need to understand them. And so we partner with a research firm every year to produce this annual media report. And, pretty proud of it because it is very difficult to survey 16 to 18-year-olds. They're a tough demographic to reach just because there's a whole bunch of privacy and security laws around it, and as there needs to be, but it makes my job a little tougher. But thankfully, because we've been doing this for so many years, we've built up a relationship with hundreds of high schools across the US and Canada, and so we're able to gain special access to some of those students in that age group. So students that are in their sophomore, junior, and senior year, the majority of the students who would have answered this response, 40%, are in their senior year, and he gives you a little picture on what they're thinking in their higher ed journey. You can feel free to download it either by scanning this QR code or heading over to our website. And the students in this particular report, it's just the US responses. So it's over 1,000 responses from 16 to 18-year-olds all across the United States. With that, let's dive in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take you through a day in the life of Riley. She's a typical Gen Z. And as we go through the day, we'll highlight all the opportunities for ads that she might see that might impact her higher ed journey. So you'll see some stats and ideas on Gen Z. We'll also go through kind of like an ideal day for an advertiser and how that might work. And, meeting Riley here, dead giveaway, she's Gen Z. Note the double Y. Riley double Y, that's a Gen Z name through and through. I will say you're not meeting a lot of Johns these days that are under 20, unless they spelt it like JYAWN or something like that. it's not on trend anymore. But hey, we had our heyday in the 80s. I know lots of Johns. They're all just well over 20. Anyway, so Riley, what's her day-to-day like? What's she going through? Those kinds of things. You can see some quick stats there. Just those are stats or I guess summaries derived from the stats in our research survey. But things that you might know just anecdotally. But they spend a lot of time on social media. They watch a lot of anime. They love to game, both men and women in that age group. Their attention span is about 8 seconds, which is significantly shorter than millennial attention span, but they're much better at recall in that 8 seconds than the millennial age group. So when they see it, even if it's quick, they remember it. And then social justice cause is very important to Gen Z. 74% listed mental health as a social cause for them. And we've seen housing affordability really rise up on that as well. But again, something in the report, we won't spend too much time on that. So what does Riley's day look like, and how can it become a journey to enrollment? We shall find out. Typical day, she wakes up to her iPhone alarm. Noteworthy, 87% of US teens own an iPhone. That's remarkable, because right now with the over 18 age group, you can think the 18 to 60, it's something like 57%. So if you thought iOS 14.5 was impactful just in general, imagine when 87% of your market share owns the same device. So that's a problem for tomorrow. We're not going to worry about that today, but it is something to be aware of. Anyway, Riley wakes up to her iPhone alarm. Before she even gets out of bed, she starts scrolling, checking out the morning TikTok scene. She's not even out of bed. She's already seeing ads on TikTok. She grabs a quick breakfast, then checks her Instagram with one hand while she's brushing her teeth, and then heads out to the bus stop. And even though it's early morning, she might still be half asleep. But this is where she can get her first impression of a post-secondary institution. So as she walks by the bus stop, she sees a traditional out-of-home ad, this Glacier University ad that's on the bus stop as she takes it to school. First impression on her higher ed journey. Keep track with me. Now she's sitting on her bus and she's on her way to high school. She decides to put on some music. I don't know, Jack Harlow or whatever ththese kids are listening to. I still listen to AM radio, so I can't talk, but I understand that's what one of the cool guys right now. So she wants to listen to Jack or whatever. She gets onto Spotify and immediately starts either seeing or listening to an ad. Spotify has been this really interesting platform because they've had a lot of success with advertising since they first debuted it in like 2013. So audio ads, obviously, but video ads have really evolved on the platform. So they've gone from video ads while you have Spotify to video ads that only play when your focus is on the screen, to now they've partnered with Roku and other connected TV devices to actually have video ads playing on your TV when you're streaming Spotify through your TV or your connected TV device. So Spotify has really made it a splash in terms of advertising, and that's something that we've seen higher ed respond with, is more time and money spent on creating good Spotify ads. And really the neat thing about Spotify is that it does benefit from good recall, just because there is such intent focus, whether it's an audio ad, and if you don't have the premium version, you can't skip through. So there's no other audio at that moment, or if it's a video ad and you're using the video feedback ad where your face actually has to be on the phone in order for it to play. So that's her second good impression of a higher ed, and she's not even at school yet. Now she gets into her high school. She finally gets there. She heads in there, grabs her textbook for math class, advanced math. No big deal. She's a mathlete, good at math. Way to go, Riley. And as she's walking in the hallways, her eyes glance over this big vinyl ad on the hallway in her school. This time, it's a great placement of traditional out of home because it's in her school where she's actively thinking about education. And it's where she has a lot of resources to talk to about her enrollment journey. Those resources being her friends and her counselor. That's the second and third most influential groups after her parents on making that higher ed decision. So really having that placement where she can look at that, and then, if she wants, immediately have that conversation with the friends she's working with or a counselor down the hall. It's an impactful place to have a good piece of content for a high school student. And what that all means is that we're slowly building trust with Riley. So she's seen Glacier ads a few times per day, and keeping in mind this is her similar day that she goes to week after week, month after month, and she's starting to build a little bit of trust. in Glacier University because she's seeing it everywhere in her day to day. As that day would continue, she might go to lunch and she's, sitting with her friends in the cafeteria, and they start talking about their plans for next year. Now, one of them mentions a local community college or some out-of-state university, whatever, and the rest already, their phones are already in their hands, and they Google it. But the top result isn't that community college. The top result is a Glacier University ad. Boom, there's another impression. That's a paid search paying dividends because they did great keywords and they really matched a good paid search campaign with what their competitors might be operating in, all competing for that same demographic at Riley's school. And, maybe this time, because she started to see Glacier so much, she actually clicks on it. And now we're able to track her device ID so that we can retarget her across social media. And this becomes much more than just a programmatic advertising journey for her. This is a big development. This is certainly something that we're excited about when we get into true media buying. Now she's, just as she's about to look at the Glacier website, or maybe she's looked at it for a little bit and she's checking out Glacier University, bell goes off and she's off to social studies, remedial social studies. She's not a social studies person. She's a math person. Math and science is not social studies. Anyway, doesn't matter. As she's walking down the hall, she sees a screen placed in her school by the main stairwell, and it's running ads for local higher ed institutions. And again, she notices Glacier University. If you're keeping track, good for you, because I'm not. I think this is number 5. Is this 5? Okay, good. Yeah, this is the 5th time. Great, thanks, Sarah. So she's got her 5th time that she's been able to see Glacier University in that day. It's on a video ad in a screen in a high school. It's super novel. There aren't generally ads placed in high school, so something that's really powerful, and something when your recruiter can't be there every day. It's important to have that presence in the school every day. So something else that she'll notice. Finally, Riley gets through her social class and she decides to head home on the subway this time. And as she steps into the train station, she sees another digital screen. This time, Glacier University was strategic. Glacier University knew what time students were going to school and what time they were going to be heading into this train station. So they chose that time to make sure their advertisement was up on this digital screen. And for anyone that's been in any kind of major metro over the last couple of years, you've probably noticed this slowly starting to expand, but digital out of home has been exploding with street furniture, bus stops, Wi-Fi kiosks, all with screens on them promoting whatever kind of ad set. But what's really noteworthy here is that this isn't just traditional out of home on a digital screen. This is programmatic digital out of home. So just like you use media buying on a website, digital out of home with a programmatic side is bought using an index or a demand side platform to allow for greater flexibility. And when those ads appear, the timing, the budget, it works on an auction style similar to if you're buying ads on the weathernetwork.com or anything else. And so that's something where you can really time your ads for those times when students are coming in and out of places where they might be congregating and things that make sense for your institution. So another impression, she continues home, and now she's not out in the wider world. So we have to make sure that we can get her on her cell phone or her social medias or whichever. And that's where that retargeting really comes in from when she clicked on that paid search ad. And that's where we can get her on social media. And, if she's on the train or she's sitting at home right now, she goes onto her Instagram, and you guessed it, there's another Glacier University ad. Man, these guys are good at advertising. Amazing. But you can see we won't get a chance to talk a ton about creative in this presentation, but this ad just looks a little more fun. So that's actually our team in the photo. And the big thing about creative on social media is that it really has to fit in with the narrative of the platform. So if your ads are going to appear on Instagram, they should look like an Instagram post. If they're going to appear on TikTok, they should look not out of place on a TikTok feed. They should have good, fun, upbeat music, and they should be, movement focused, that kind of thing. So that all lends itself to the authenticity that Gen Z really craves and looks for in creative. If you're making disingenuous ads, they usually can sniff it out from a mile away, and it just doesn't perform as well. Whereas, images that are authentic, that are real, that they can feel as if they see themselves in it, that's really what resonates with this generation. We'll talk a little bit more about creative near the end, or near the end of my portion. But in this instance, you can see I tried to pizzazz it up a bit with a little bit of real imagery there. Also noteworthy, Gen Z's thirst for authenticity. Merriam-Webster actually named authentic as the word of the year this year for 2023. A little tip from Sarah told me that today, so I appreciate that. And certainly Gen Z is making an impact on authenticity and how we consume our media. Anyway, little tangent there. Bottom line is we've retargeted her. She's on social media. We got her on Instagram. Fantastic. She takes the train home. She's back in her house and she logs into Twitch to watch other people play video games. And I can't say that sentence and still not think it's crazy, but it's like a top 50 website in the world and everybody's doing it. And I don't understand, but good for them. They figured it out. Everyone wants to watch other people play video games. But I used to watch my brothers play Super Mario, a million years ago. And I didn't think anyone would ever pay to do that, but I was wrong. Should have invented Twitch. Anyway, now it just makes me feel old. That, and also I found out that Harry Potter was released 23 years ago, which also makes me feel old, but whatever. We'll get past that. Anyway, Riley's streaming Twitch. Below the stream there, you can see some ads flickering by there. One's Glacier University, one's another institution, but that's just hooking up. If this was through, I know the picture's on a laptop, but if it was through an Xbox or something like that, then that's really diving into the connected TV space, which, Hulu, Sling, Netflix, all that kind of thing, as they become more and more open to advertising. That has been such a key. Is while it is expensive purchasing ads and media buying on connected TV, you have unbelievable ability to zero in on your demographic, which is really the key to it, and maybe a lower down the funnel kind of tactic. Now, this is kind of interesting. Daily social media usage. Just wanted to pass this by you to understand why social media and the retargeting portion is so important. And so we can see all the top 4 there, all social media platforms and all focused on video. So TikTok's impact over the pandemic was incredible as the entire world shifted to short form video. Certainly short form video was around before the pandemic, but YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Stories, they were definitely not. And that was because all of those platforms had to scramble to keep up with TikTok and what they'd done to impact short form video and how important that is. So again, just a demonstration of how this generation has impacted consumption for media, because now we see it all over the place. Little prediction here as we take a look at these stats. We've noticed obviously changes over the last few years as TikTok has moved into #1 and Instagram has dropped slightly. YouTube's really seen a renaissance coming out of COVID, so it's risen a bit. Spotify has really good numbers there. But we do expect to see Twitch continue to climb as esports get more popular and mainstream, and gaming continues to grow, which it is growing rapidly, and we'll talk about right here. So the day's winding to a close. She's watched some TV, she's had dinner, all that kind of stuff. She goes up to her room to lounge, and she's spending time on her phone playing games. You can see the rotating ads across the top there, banner ads there for Glacier University and Brock University. And gaming ads are great just because there is such a focus on the screen. And of course, while the focus is on the car at the bottom, there's going to be, blocks in the game where focus is not on your actual gameplay and it's just on the screen itself. And that's where that banner ad at the top or the middle or the beginning of, or the end of the game is going to be noticed. And gaming really is so key because it is such a big part of Gen Z's life. 87% of Gen Z play video games on devices like smartphones or computers or gaming consoles weekly. And what I think is really noteworthy here is there's less discrepancy or disparity between males and females than I would have guessed. Males are gaming on average 12 hours a week, but females are gaming 9 hours a week. And just a number that I was a little surprised by, wouldn't have guessed. A couple of years ago, I don't know if that would have been the same, but it's a great way to reach both males and females. And we've moved a lot of our programmatic spend over to the gaming platforms just because of the attention that those ads get. There's, a lot of hours spent on gaming, and there's a lot of intent focus on the screen during those times, which generally lends itself to better recall. So they're really noticing those ads that come up. So finally, if we multiply this over weeks and weeks and months that Riley's going to her high school, and after many, many impressions where day after day she's seeing these things at the bus ads and the train station and in her high school and on her phone and all those kinds of things, Riley has had some trust built up in Glacier University. She's seen their ads everywhere. They have content that's authentic. She's even clicked on one to check out their website. It all leads to this engagement. So she's seen an ad on Amazon while she was shopping for some Crocs with the little, I don't know what they're called, the little wacky things that go on your Crocs. I used to know the name. Giblets, something, some fancy thing. It was whatever these kids are doing with the Crocs, little tags on them. Anyway, she's shopping for those things. That's definitely what she's doing. And she sees an ad for Glacier University, clicks on it, and bingo, it takes her to a form fill. And that's where we get access to a little bit more. So it's a real quick form fill, 4 or 5 points. We're not asking for a life story. We just need enough information that we can get some first party data from her and then move on to some direct tactics with her. So quick form fill goes out, and then she can continue her research process, and we have more information about her so that we can continue to bring her down the funnel. This is an interesting piece in that across both or all ages, 16, 17, 18, or sophomores through seniors, everyone responded the university website is number one in terms of how they learn more about the college or university. But then social media, you can see it climbing over the last 4 or 5 years. We've been doing this survey for 6 years. And you could see social media slowly replace brochures and then replace speaking to a guidance counselor, and then it became number 2. And I know with a lot of universities, I always hear, how do I create a viral Instagram, or why is my TikTok page not doing better? And should I even have a TikTok, or our government doesn't allow TikTok, or whatever it is. And to that, I always think having your own organic page, your own page for TikTok or whichever, like it's such a marathon to maintain social media and to do a good job of it. And so I think this stat really is interesting here is they're going there for information. And so if your Instagram page or your TikTok is not kept up the way a true TikTok might be, where there should be, posts happening multiple times a day throughout the whole year, and that's just too much of a beast to take on. If they're just going there not to be entertained, they're going there for information, then I think you can get away with just a good, informative, professional looking, authentic looking TikTok page or Instagram page or Facebook page, something that caters to the audience but doesn't have to entertain them. They're going there to gain information to verify that you're a good, reputable institution. So I think you can view it in that lens, and it becomes a little bit more manageable when you're thinking about your social media for your institution, especially if you're a smaller institution. So she's form fill. What's next? Well, she's gone to an open house. Let's say the form fill was an open house. She got an email, invited her to it. She went to it. She's like, okay, this place, not bad, not bad. And then there's diligent follow-up. So she's getting direct mailers, there's emails, customized contact from recruiters, all that kind of stuff. And it all leads to the big choice. Did she go to Glacier University? Well, let me tell you what, we wrote this story, and there's no bad stories over here. Of course she did. She went, hooray. She applied to Glacier University, and according to the Blackboard then, it looks like she's going in 3034. I don't know, maybe she's immortal, bless her heart, good on her. But yes, she's going to Glacier University. So that's fantastic. We'll just take a look at a couple examples of this in real life, just to give you an idea. And so I wanted to talk about this just quickly here. These are some granted, these are organic posts from some colleges and universities here, but I wanted to just give you an idea. So both of these appeared on TikTok. They might do fine on Instagram, but I did want to point out what we call messy realness. So if we think about as a millennial or whichever, when you're thinking Instagram, you're often thinking of light colors. It's very structured. It's neat. There's not a lot of clutter. It's just a very structured, curated piece of social media. But that is not what Gen Z is after. They're after what we call messy realness. And so it's this very authentic, very fun, vivid colors, bright, messy kind of, like you'll see clutter in the background. You'll see, poor, low production quality videos. That's really what they embrace. And it's something that, your ads can do that to some extent, but posts can do that to a whole nother level. And so to think of institutions actually putting out low production quality videos like this a few years ago would be unheard of. But now this is what we're seeing, and this really resonates well. And I'll show you part of the first one because it's pretty long, but I think it does a great job of showing some fun, something that appeals to Gen Z, and something that they're going to want to engage with. I just love that. I want to get the other one sorted, guys. Yeah, I love that. I think it's a great job. Messy realness, both of them just throwing out there, and really something that I would find very entertaining as a Gen Z, but maybe not something that you'd see on your particular Instagram content unless you are Gen Z. And then some examples of more on an advertising side. So Geneva College here with first one I'll show you would really fit in well as an Instagram ad. And then in the middle there is a poster that went up in high schools, and then on the right is a TikTok ad.
Being a graduate student at Geneva has given me the opportunity to truly integrate academics and the professional world. So everything that I'm learning in class every week, I see in the office in my graduate distinction.
I really connected with people here. I believe that I have a support system that I won't find anywhere else, specifically with people that are dedicated to my education, to my personal growth, to my emotional health. Where are you going to get that?
See, I just think that's fantastic. And if you're looking at the TikTok video there, it's great user-generated content, which of course requires a whole bunch of organization if you're going to do that correctly. And then that last video there, you could cut it up into little shorts, use it on YouTube. You could use it on Instagram. But again, very authentic, real students speaking. It just lends itself to knowing that whoever is viewing that ad could see themselves at that institution when they see people that look like them speaking about it. And with that, that's my section. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for listening. And let's kick it off, Sarah. I'm excited about yours.
I was still on mute, caught that fast enough on my own. Thanks, John. So John just walked us through this incredibly detailed journey of how you can appeal to this budding generation of consumers. And we saw a ton of touch points along the way. I counted 9. I don't know if that's the right answer or not, if I win a prize or something, but I got up to 9, which is incredible. That is a ton of content that is being put in front of this audience on a daily basis. And for each touch point, like, it may have its own asset, and not all assets can just be automatically distributed across all of these different channels now that we have. And so you may be looking at 10, 20, 50 assets like per campaign, marketing campaign that you're running, and you may be running multiple campaigns at one time. So appealing to Gen Z means that there is this growing demand for your internal and creative, your internal marketing and creative teams to generate this fresh, authentic, interesting, creative material. And so we're going to look at in the second half of this presentation is technically, how do we get that done? How do we actually generate all of this content that John just displayed for us so that we can tell this good narrative? John has given us this wonderful outline of how to deliver that good narrative. And so now we're going to look at how do we support it? How do we support good storytelling through our creative operations? So we're going to do a little bit of a throwback to English class here and thinking about how we deliver that great content and embracing this kind of theme of storytelling. We're going to adopt this literary structure of storytelling, which is plotting. The plot of every good story basically has 5 elements, these 5 elements that we see in front of us. And so we're going to translate good storytelling plotting over to creative automation. So quick recap, in case you haven't been in an English class in a minute. Exposition, this is where we're setting all of the background for our story. We're setting the scene, we're giving the audience context that they can engage with, that can resonate with them. We're introducing all of the new characters, and ultimately this is where the conflict for our story begins to develop. When we move into rising action, that's where we see our characters attempting to solve the problem. They're figuring out how they're going to deal with the primary conflict of the story, and they're dealing with kind of the complexities that come with that portion of the journey. Usually, rising action is the longest part of your story. Then we move into the turning point, the climax. This is where your conflict is resolved, most often through some big dramatic action that takes place. Then we move into falling action. Now we see, how does the solution that we stumbled upon in the climax, how does that impact our characters moving forward in their life? What's next for them? What's the outcome? What are the consequences of the rising action in the climax? And then finally, we get to the resolution. This is where we tie up all the loose ends, we bring everything together, put that pretty bow on it, and we conclude the story. So, looking at the basics of the 5 elements of plot, we're also going to look at these basic kind of 6 stages of your typical creative operations cycle. Not everyone's creative operations look like this, but this is a little, it's a generic example that allows us for all of us to operate off of the same assumptions. So you start with your creative brief. That's your intake process, where your stakeholder reaches out and says, hey, we need creative to help us achieve our goal. And so they let you know what their intentions are and how they need you to participate. Then we move into the creative process. So this is where your creative team does their brainstorming, the ideation, the designing. This is where you're bringing to life the solution that you're going to propose to the creative brief problem. Then you move into review and approval. This is when you're validating the work that you've done through the creative process with your stakeholder to make sure that you're aligned on your direction and that you're finalizing the solution to the problem, that everyone is satisfied with the solution, and you create your prototype that you're going to generate in the next phase in production, all of the different assets you need to satisfy the original brief request. So this is when you're layering in is all those authentic details, as John really drove home for us, that authenticity is and it's an absolutely crucial element for reaching Gen Z. And so this is when you're bringing in what we're calling the izations, your personalization, the customization. You cannot just throw a blanket advertising campaign out and expect the Gen Z audience to resonate with it. You have to really be specific in how you're appealing to those individuals as people. Gen Z, they expect to be courted for their time and attention in their business. And so in this production stage, that's where we're layering in that the expertise of that audience. And then final delivery, all the required assets have been developed, they've been approved, and we're ready to go to market. We're ready to take our campaign live. So what we're going to do in this next part of the presentation is we're going to plot our creative operations and show some parallels between these two structures. Your exposition is your creative brief. Rising action is the creative process. Climax is review and approval. Falling action is production, and resolution is final delivery. Breeze through that because we're going to take a moment and look at these individually to better understand the parallel of these structures. So the creative brief is your exposition. I mentioned before, exposition is where you're gathering all that background information, you're introducing your characters, you're preparing for the drama. That's exactly what happens in the creative brief. This is where your stakeholder reaches out and says, I've got all this information that I need you to take and absorb and turn into a deliverable, turn into a print or a digital asset that we can deliver into the wild. So this is where you're gathering all the basic information you need to move your story forward. You're identifying your characters that are going to be part of your creative ops story, all the necessary parties that you need to collaborate with to get this done. Designers, content strategists, copywriters, compliance coordinators. You're also setting expectations and you're developing your timeline with your stakeholders in this creative brief process. So again, identifying all the information, getting the essential details that you need, and ultimately to move your story forward, to move your creative production into the next phase, which is the creative process, which parallels with rising action. So rising action is all of the character's journey that leads up to that big turning point decision. So this is where we start trying to solve the request prompts. What was delivered to us from our stakeholder, we start trying to solve their problem now. The creative team is making decisions about how to address the prompts, and they're testing out those different theories. There's going to be a mix of successes and failures. It's strikes and gutters, it's highs and lows as you move through this creative process, but it's all part of it is in order to find what is the absolute best solution that we can present to your stakeholder to satisfy their needs. The creative process should be the longest stage of your creative operations cycle. Should be is in italics because we're going to throw in another little literary element here. And that's some foreshadowing for you. We're going to circle back to why the creative process should be the longest stage and how right now it probably isn't for your team. And I'll provide some tactical tips on how it can be. And you can make adjustments to evolve your creative operations as the audiences and the creative industry shifts around us. Next, we move into the climax, which parallels with review and approval. We're now offering this prototype, our best possible answer, our solution to the stakeholders. We may battle with the stakeholders a little bit to find out if we've satisfied their request. There's going to be some back and forth here, most likely. In my experience as a designer and a creative manager, rarely were things approved as is on that first round of review and approval. But that's part of the fun of this process is making sure you get it right and making sure you're honoring the expertise and the opinions of your stakeholders and ultimately helping them meet their goal and helping them be successful. And in the end, a decision is made, how you move forward. That is our turning point, and that the creative work has been done. The concept has been finalized and decided upon. And we have this prototype that we can then take into the production phase, this falling action, where we're preparing the asset for market. So we've made the big decision. Now, what are the consequences? The consequences are that personalization and the customization, preparing that asset to be distributed, all the different places where you're hoping to have those touch points, all of those 11, 12, 13 places that John walked us through at the beginning of the presentation to reach that Gen Z audience. Again, this is where that authenticity is just paramount. And you're collaborating with other experts at this phase to layer in that expertise in your audience to make sure that what you're delivering to them resonates and is impactful. Also, this is where you're going to wrap up any production holes that you need to. It's, pulling all of those loose ends together and making sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And then finally, resolution is our final delivery. All of our questions have been answered. All of our conflicts have resolved. We have assets that are ready to go to market. And ultimately, we may be setting the groundwork for sequels. Often, your resolution, the end of one story, is the beginning of another. And I loved the way John put this, saying that it's a marathon in order to attract and to engage with that Gen Z audience. And I think that resonates great. That plays well really here with this bullet point of groundwork for sequels. That Gen Z interest is changing. This is how that attention span is 8 seconds. And there's so much new content being thrown at them all the time. And so if you don't already, you might want to start considering what is your reuse, what is your recycling plan for the campaigns that you're throwing at that audience. Your campaign life expectancy is shorter with the Gen Z audience. And so there's a greater need to adjust and to nurture your marketing campaigns to that audience on a much more regular basis than maybe what we've done in the past. And so this final delivery is not necessarily the conclusion and we shut the book and it's over. We may actually be preparing ourselves for more of an anthology type campaign where we're going to have lots of chapters that go into ultimately trying to make this message, this campaign successful. So we've looked at how we can plot creative operations in order to tell a story. And so now we're going to get into tips for making that happen. First, just to validate why this is so important, we see the demand for quick content is increasing. About 75% of consumers say that they're eager to buy from brands that offer that personalized experience. And we see that 74% of marketers say that they really struggle to produce the variety and the volume that's required to deliver that personalized experience that their audience is wanting. So there's a mismatch there of what the audience is demanding and what creative teams and marketing teams feel like they're actually able to deliver. Similarly, the demand for this custom content is increasing. There's all these different channels, as John described for us, all these different places where you can go and try and reach your audience. You may probably have, a closet full of products that you're selling to your audiences. There's different languages that you may need to be using. We have a greater reach to more people than we ever have before. There's different formats right now. Print and digital are primary formats. Can't wait to see what's going to be next. You have different specs, as we mentioned, with all of those different assets that are coming from one campaign, going to all of those different channels. They probably all have different dimension requirements. And then your different calls to action is where you're layering in that authentic expertise of what is the messaging that we can use that's going to resonate to this particular audience, this particular segment, customer segment. And when you multiply all of these variables together, the demand for the custom content is just exponentially growing to the point, like we said, where creative and marketing teams really struggle to keep up. So how can you deliver quick custom content by adjusting and evolving your creative operations? A couple of tips for you here. First, I'm going to recommend that you establish an easy to remember process for collecting all of that information. This plays into the exposition, that creative brief stage. This is really, you're wanting to make it as easy as possible for your stakeholders to reach out to you and engage with you, to collaborate with you, to solve their problem. You may be working with new colleagues as creative and marketing teams are growing or just maturing now that our industry and our audiences are evolving as well. And so you may be working with some new team members, or you may be working with your same existing team members, but maybe just in new capacities or with new responsibilities. So having an easy to remember and easy to follow process for kicking off these creative projects is really vital, so that you're making sure you're setting your creative team up to be successful, but you're also setting your stakeholder up to follow the process that you need in order to do your work. You can't just always be relying on it. Probably you shouldn't be relying on, because it's a pain in the ass to have stuff coming in from emails or hallway chats or a ping here or a text message there. So you have to have an established process. We would love to work with you. This is how you need to work with us, but make it easy, make it comfortable. This is not, there's no need to put any undue pressure or stress on the relationship. Second, ensure that your request forms, that intake process, have all the fields available to your stakeholders to provide that essential information. Really make it easy for them to share the information that you need to get started. For folks who use Lytho, and if you're using request forms, this may be a little bit lighting a fire to audit your request forms. Are you using required fields in order, to ensure that the right information is coming in and that people can't submit requests for your time and your resources unless they're coming with a completed brief that actually allows your team to be successful and kicking off and going in the right direction. You probably, you want to look into using campaign deliverables as you think about reaching out to that Gen Z audience, so that your stakeholder can request multiple deliverables, multiple deliverable types, and just one request form. They don't have to make duplicate requests or enter in the same information in multiple places at multiple times. Double check your deliverables. Are you offering the most up-to-date deliverables and options to your stakeholders so that they can select not only what's the best fit for them, but something that you can actually deliver and perform for them? Something else to consider is, do you have a process for declining requests? So when that request form comes in, maybe they've satisfied all the required fields, but the level of detail isn't there. Do you have a process for declining that request? One, to protect your creative team from going down a rabbit hole that just is unnecessary for them, but also to help your stakeholder understand, how do I do this best next time so that I can actually get this collaboration going on the timeline that they're expecting? Utilize change requests. Lytho just released this function, change requests, not too long ago, and it has received rave reviews. I personally use it. We drink our own champagne. We use Lytho to manage our creative operations in-house, and change requests have been just huge for our ability to quickly adjust to new content needs that are coming through. We've kind of beaten the same drum throughout this presentation with this quick custom content, is that change is going to happen and you just need to be prepared for it. It's not always possible for your stakeholder to have everything that your team is going to need to get started squared away, buttoned up right from the get-go. They may be waiting on additional research to come in, or expertise from, an outside firm to be delivered. But your stakeholder wants you to know that this work is coming, and they'd like for you to account for this work so that you can reserve resources and time for this work to be done. And so not always having everything right up front, that's okay. And so you consider having a process for allowing stakeholders to come to you with incomplete briefs with the intention of getting the work on your radar. It actually benefits you and your team so that you can forecast, you can plan, and you've given your stakeholder an easy to remember, easy to adopt way of coming in and updating that request once they have the final information. You're not having to try and piece it together again from all these, saving information or sharing information on all of these different places. You go right back to that original request form, update those fields that had holes and gaps in them before, and then submit it to you. A great feature within Lytho when you're using change requests is custom statuses. We have a customer who often allows work to come in, a brief to come in that's incomplete, so that they can plan for the upcoming work. And they have created a custom status called air traffic control. This is basically where, like, your tray tables are stored, your seat belts are on, but the landing gear is not down yet, so you're not quite ready to come in and make your landing. So once the request is accepted, so that it's moved into work in progress and it can be accounted for against all of your other initiatives and projects. If you pop it into that air traffic control status, you send that message to your internal creative team. Don't worry, you don't need to give this any attention right now. I know that there are gaps. I will let you know when it's ready for you. So by pairing those two functions together, you really set yourself up to forecast well, to plan well, and really to engage with that stakeholder so that you're managing mutually agreed upon expectations and timelines. Also, change requests, much like in your request forms, these are reportable functions within Lytho. And so as you're collecting information, like on your request forms, If you're using custom fields so that you're consistently collecting information, that's data that you can then really easily report on. Same with change requests. You can report on change requests. So you may be able to identify folks who might be taking advantage of some flexibility that you've allowed them in the system. And then you can address that on an individual basis and make sure that your operations don't get skewed out of what you initially intended to set everyone up to be successful. You're going to want to version your proofs as that work comes in and as new influences, new research, new data comes in, you make a quick adjustments on the fly as the marketing team comes in or your stakeholder comes in with additional details that need to be considered as you're creating your prototype through that creative process. When you're versioning your work, you're setting that paper trail. I think about it as like if you're reading, when you're reading a book, as soon as you finish a page, you don't just like rip it out and throw it away and keep moving on. No, of course, we hang on to the whole book because we might need that information as reference material or to help us get clarity, something that's more confusing as we're moving along in the story. We keep it for context. Well, it's the same in our creative operations. You don't want to get rid of, every stage that you've gone through in coming up with your final deliverable assets or that prototype, that your final concept solution that's going to ultimately be deployed. You want to have that record of what's been happening and how you got to that decision that you made for the solution and who was involved and who gave feedback and what feedback, so that there's transparency, there's accountability, and you make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. Also, proof versions is something that you can track through Lytho reporting. And so that gives you a much better understanding of your operations. The better you understand your operations, the better you can forecast, prepare, and ultimately deliver to your stakeholder, because you better understand, hey, based on this type of deliverable, or, we need collaboration with this specific department in order to get this done. You can look at those specifics through your reporting and have a much better understanding what's a realistic expectation for this work to get done. So you're setting better expectations with your stakeholders to deliver what they're looking for. Maintaining a single source of truth. I mean, this is so valuable across all your operations. I'm going to tell you that Lytho is a great place for you to maintain your single source of truth, but really whatever tool that you're using, you want to make sure that your stakeholders and your internal team members have visibility. What's great about Lytho is that depending on your role in the system, you have different levels of visibility, but that visibility maintains or creates alignment and then helps you maintain that alignment as your creative projects evolve over time through that ideation and the creative brief, and then through review and approval. As it evolves, everyone needs to know what's happening, what's changed, why it's changed, who's now responsible. And again, you need the different levels of transparency. Your stakeholders in Lytho have the opportunity to get like status updates. They can receive files that are ready before maybe the whole project has been wrapped up. You were able to, create some deliverables along the way. And so you're giving them the right level of access to the creative operations so that they feel like they're in the loop. They're a proactive member. They stay engaged with you guys. At the same time, you're protecting your creative team, because they need a safe space to have collaborative conversations that stakeholders just, one, don't need to be a part of, and two, really don't need to see happen in the background. And so by maintaining a single source of truth, you're keeping all of the details in one place. And then with Lytho, you get to decide who has access to what information at the appropriate altitude for their role in your creative ops. And then finally, this self-service through creative automation. This is where we're going to spend really the last couple of minutes of our presentation, is talking about creative automation. Creative automation allows you to take that prototype, take that the ultimate guide that you're going to use to deliver all of your assets to market, and it allows you to bring your stakeholders in and assist you in that production. So this quick tidbit, we are about to release our creative operations report. And this report is all about artificial intelligence. And so that's going to make these stats even more impactful. One of the questions we asked is, what industry shifts have you witnessed or experienced? We had 84% of respondents come back and say that they are experiencing major industry shifts right now. And then we asked them to identify what those shifts were. Again, this report, this survey was about artificial intelligence primarily. The number one industry shift that came back was 48% of survey participants said that it's automated content creation and generation. It's creative automation. The third highest response was 46% of the survey participants said that personalized advertising and marketing is the major industry shift that they're seeing. So by looking at creative automations, as we walked through it earlier, we see production is the longest stage. It's this bloated stage within your creative ops. By folding in creative automation, by bringing in, I reference here, Lytho's creative automation solution is Tempo. Tempo allows you to create smart templates. Your designer comes in and creates a template and then turns it over to stakeholders so they can come in, engage, and generate the assets that they need by engaging with form fields that your designer has said, you can come in and adjust these things, but you can't touch some of these other things. So everything always stays on brand. If you're maintaining your creative integrity, but your stakeholder gets to come in and actually participate in the production process, which means that we're shrinking the time that your creative team needs to commit to the production side. And instead, we're coming in here and really blowing out this creative process, which is where the way more valuable work happens. It's developing that best solution possible that sets up your other experts, your stakeholders, to be able to come in and layer in that ization work. This is where that personalization and customization happens. And so by bringing creative automation into your production, you're alleviating a lot of undue stress on your creative team, because they're not having to do that small tweak work of, oh, we need this call to action and this image for this particular segment or this particular demographic. That's all good and great. We know that with Generation Z, we have to have that level of specialization and authenticity, but let's empower other people to come in and participate and layer in their experts instead of the creative team having to serve as that middleman. So the demand for, all of this, really the demand for your creativity is through the roof right now, and there's no way around it. So hopefully I've shared with you how you can plot your operations to meet that demand and how you can take advantage of new tools like Lytho Tempo in order to help your team be successful in meeting that demand. And John has provided us with an incredible story outline of how, when, where, how you can deliver this content to your team. I think we are right at time here, and I'm not seeing any questions in our little Q&A channel. We have thrown a ton at you today, and we would love to follow up with you. So if you have questions or you want to continue this conversation, we'd love to do that. You will receive an email from us with this recording, and you can reach out to us, of course, as your normal means. If you're a Lytho customer, reach out through your CSM or email us, success@lytho.com, if you want to reach out to us. And again, you'll receive a follow-up email. John, for folks who want to reach out and talk to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, just head over to weareglacier.org and be happy to help.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much. This was really a lovely collaboration for us. We really appreciate the expertise you brought in helping us figure out how we connect with this Gen Z, this really big, exciting consumer base.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.